big flag that we need to watch. On healthcare, my own sense is that, again, it goes back to preemption. In the healthcare area, I would suspect that McCain would continue to preempt state authority with respect to benefits, and also the so-called AHPs allow associations really to negotiate contracts on a multi-state basis. So really would be overriding state authority in this area. This is something that particularly the small business firms have been pushing for. On one hand, I understand it because they do get in some states the mandates are significant and there's probably a little benefit from them. On the other hand, the big risk is that it really begins to interfere with the marketplace on healthcare, because not only are you going to have the ERISA firms that are pulled out from the state marketing pools, but now you're going to have the second most healthy group, which is the small business people, pulled out, which means it could crash your local state market. So lots of risk around, I think, a McCain approach there. On the Obama, if he talks about doing what they said they would do, I think the questions are what states win and what states lose. Because one of the things you find is that the Medicaid programs of states have evolved into 50 very unique programs in terms of what they cover, how much is long-term care, everything else along the lines. And so depending upon whether they voucher other low-income people, whether they expand Medicaid, and if they do they take some of the burden off of states, or because of the size of the deficit that I mentioned, are they going to mandate to states to cover some of these populations? So I think there are also very, very big risks on the Obama side, depending upon the program. The only good news, I think, is that particularly in healthcare, you'll find that states really have taken a leadership position over the last 5 to 8 years. And I think you're going to find if there are huge changes, the states and governors are going to fight pretty hard because a lot of them like what they've done, and as I said, they have provided a lot of leadership. So it's an issue that, in fact, if you look at both McCain and Obama's websites, the one area you find that they want to build on state activity happens to be healthcare. So I think they're fully aware of the potential problems there. As I mentioned, I think both will probably do infrastructure. Unless they change some of the allocations or such, I think that states will be just fine on that. So, in summary, I would say, unfortunately, the state fiscal situation expects states to continue to struggle for a couple more years. We've always got to keep in mind that the impact on states is often after the recession is over. And it's largely because of the Medicaid impact. Second, the size of the deficit, unfortunately, is growing. It's going to probably be in the $650 billion range. It could be worse if the economy slows and or inflation is dramatically increased. That's going to put pressure on the domestic side of the budget. And secondly, entitlements are going to continue to grow in that 6%, 7%, 8% between Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, which is also going to put downward pressure on the domestic side. Risks, as I mentioned, both mandates and preemptions. Republicans on the preemption of state revenues, and Democrats on using more mandates to expand programs using state money. And then when you get into the specific areas of energy, healthcare, and some of the others, I think the big risk is really around both of their initiatives with respect to healthcare. So that states and governors would really have to be at the table as those begin to move through the Congress. And with that, maybe I should leave quickly. Yeah, well, I mean, you know as much as I do. I mean, it's, in the short run, it is possible that they're going to have to put more money in there, so that's going to increase the deficit in the short run. In the long run, they're going to have to come back and restructure the entire thing, so that'll be on the table for the next year. But it's really hard to gauge how much. I mean, you could be, as I'm saying. It really depends. We don't have a good feel yet because I don't think a lot of people have tested up at what the order of magnitude of that debt is there. So I think, I mean, maybe Paulson and Treasury have an estimate, but I'm not seeing it. But you're right. It could be tens of billions of dollars easily. It could be hundreds. That's right. It will increase the size of the debt. That's what I'm saying. The numbers I gave you, in my mind, are sort of conservative. There's lots of potential risks that could make it worse. Other questions? I can't really see you, but I see a hand.
Do you have any thoughts on the difference between the two respective candidates on community service, on mandated towards community service, the AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, anything that we see on the horizon there?
And the question of those people, community service, that type of thing, any differences in the community. Not that I'm aware of. I would suspect that has become something that's had pretty good bipartisan support. So my gut would say you might have some support on both sides. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. You're not going to tell me exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
With the No Child Left Behind Act, having now basically created another unfunded mandate to the states, what do you see the two candidates' positions being on education spending?
Well, on the spending side, clearly I think Obama is much more sensitive to the additional costs on that. And I think I mentioned that I would think that education would be among his top 2 or 3 priorities in terms of additional funding. The education thing is interesting, though, in that we are now on a path at NGA, working with some other groups to really try to do international benchmarking with state standards. And our hope is to release a report right after the election. That could well dramatically change the debate in Congress if we move in that direction. And I think we think it's the right thing to do. Our attitude, it really doesn't make any difference how Mississippi compares to Iowa anymore. We have to compete in the international marketplace, and we need to start focusing on that. So if everything goes like I think it will be, we'll be out with something fairly new, not only in terms of this is the concept, but we think we've got a clear 15 to 20 states that are ready to start now moving in that direction. So we're hoping that we can get out front of that and they can revise No Child Left Behind around the new conceptual framework. Okay,